Safety FM, changing safety cultures, one broadcast and one podcast at a time.
Welcome to Safety FM, where we talk about safety that's truly inspired by you. Hello and welcome to Safety FM. This episode of the broadcast and the podcast has been brought to you by Safety Focus Moment. They are consultants that want to help you get to the safety culture that you've been looking for. For more information, go to safetyfocusmoment.com. Well, hello and welcome to Safety FM. This is Jay Allen. You know, I was actually starting off, had something else entirely planned that I was going to say when I first started this, but I thought it was interesting because it's pretty amazing when you start looking around on when people are getting ready for their podcast or their broadcast, and they start listening to music to get them all, I guess, amped up before they actually start. And then it's just amazing on how all the music goes down, and then they play their bed music. That's what they refer to in the industry in regards of the music that's playing underneath on how I'm speaking right now. So I just think it's funny on how there's a total change of music on what's amping them up to what's going on. Anyways, don't want to bore you too much with that kind of information, but I just thought it was interesting on how that actually does happen before most broadcasts and podcasts do occur. So today we're going to do something a little bit different. Recently, we have moved from our hosting platform that we were using in the past, and we are now being hosted by a company called Megaphone, which is a Panoply company. So we're pretty excited about being on Megaphone, being hosted by Megaphone. It's exciting times for us here at Safety FM. So you'll see a little bit of changes in the programming going forward. So I just want to forewarn you on that. The other thing is that we change hosting services, what's going to end up taking place is I don't believe that we'll lose any episodes in the transition, but just in case if we did, what I'm going to do here on the episode today is something we haven't done yet. And what we're going to do is something a little bit different. What I'm going to do is I'm going to take some of the people that I have interviewed up to this point, and we're going to edit them together where you can take a listen to that podcast. So it's going to be kind of a little bit of some excerpts of some of the people that I've interviewed, some of the information that they discussed on the podcast. So just in case if an episode or two gets lost in the shuffle, you'll kind of hear what has been done in the past. I'm pretty sure that all the episodes are going to come across, but in case they don't, I just want to be able to give you some examples of what we've already done in the past. So enjoy the broadcast or the podcast about the podcast and the broadcast that we've already had, what we're doing now, in case you haven't heard them. I know that becomes very confusing. Anyways, enjoy it here now on Safety FM or safetyfm.com.
Safety FM.
So Dr. Coughlin, I appreciate you actually coming on to Safety FM.
No problem at all, man. What a treat.
So then at that particular point, when do you determine to have the conversation with people that we are doing safety wrong as an industry, and how are you able to verbalize this?
Well, so it's really kind of there's a journey to this conversation. Because at first I didn't think we were doing safety wrong because, there was really only one way to do safety. And that was you told people to get safer. And then you told them over and over and over again to get safer. And then you built systems where you could observe them and tell them to get safer. And then you got behavioral-based safety programs where you had peers tell them to be safer. And at the time, my belief was the problem was that the workers needed to be safer. And what this new view, the Safety Differently view did was kind of force me to look at things beyond the workers. In fact, it was the moment where I realized that the worker's not the problem to be fixed. The worker's the solution. If you treat the worker as a problem, then you're going to constantly be frustrated with workers. But if you treat the workers as a solution, what you start to see is improvement right away. And it's a really interesting, if you look at the journey that most organizations take, the journey kind of starts with the realization that human error is normal. And for a while, that becomes really super attractive, that you look at how people make mistakes and you think, what we need to do is mistake-proof the organization. We need to make sure people don't make mistakes. So we'll put in a lot of systems in there to create mistake-free. We'll mistake-proof the system. We'll idiot-proof this process. We'll make it so that they never make mistakes. But then after a while, you realize, mistakes are just normal. But mistakes aren't bad or good. They're just part of the normal fabric of being a human being. People are fallible and they make lots of mistakes. And good performers probably make more mistakes than bad performers because good performers have more opportunities to screw up. And so then once you sort of get over the mistake thing, then you start thinking about the blame thing. And the blame thing, in my mind, is kind of the big, that's the one. It's the realization somehow that blaming doesn't fix anything. And once people understand that, when I blame a guy for screwing up, when I blame a guy for cutting his hand, I've emotionally met my needs to sort of determine who is at fault, but I haven't actually done anything to fix the thing that cut the guy's hand. So you have to kind of look at error, and then you look at blame. And once you look at error and look at blame, then the old systems, the systems that we've used historically that have actually carried quite a bit of water for us, those systems aren't very effective. And then the final thing is this quite amazing realization that there's a limit to compliance. And this is kind of a big deal, but there is a limit to compliance. You're in a position, and the people who listen to you are probably definitely in this position, where more rules do not create more safety. In fact, for the most part, rules as a foundation are pretty good because they set expectations, but rules themselves are not control. They don't actually manage behavior. Rules are expectations for what we want. And lots of times there's a misalignment between the expectation of what we want and the system in which we put the worker to do the work. That was a pretty long answer.
But
that's like an extra credit answer.
Absolutely. But you have a lot of information inside of there. And I think that is sometimes our misconceptions. It's, okay, all of a sudden now somebody injured their hand, but we did absolutely nothing to correct the problem. And I'm involved mostly in the transportation industry, and I'm amazed watching on how we have different organizations that will terminate a vehicle operator opposed to trying to coach and correct the issue that might have caused an accident to occur. So listening to you say
even more importantly, to learn from it. So the coach and correction is good. That's great, right? That's good. Because we can coach the worker, be more careful. We can correct the system, make it harder to back into something. But the bottom line is that primarily at the foundational level, what we have to do is create an opportunity to learn. And the problem with blame is that blame is the opposite of learning. So when we go to blame, we have sort of the emotional payoff. It actually gives us our confirmation. It tells us, okay, we fixed the problem. But in fact, we haven't fixed anything. We fixed blame. We haven't fixed the worker. And blame doesn't make a system better. I mean, it just doesn't. If you lose your car keys, you can blame yourself all day long for losing your car keys. But I'll bet you a nickel at some point you go to the car dealer and you get another key. That's actually a solution, and it has nothing to do with blame. It has everything to do with fixing the problem.
Well, Dr. Geller, first of all, I would like to thank you for coming on to Safety FM. It is a true honor and a true privilege to have you on.
Oh, yeah, my pleasure. Yes, that's when it all started, yeah.
But it is funny that you mentioned that, because when you listen to people that believe in HOP in particular, they try to say that behavior-based safety references that it's the employee's fault. So
yes, and Jay, that's just so wrong. We never said that, but that is their way of selling HOP. And by the way, the two go hand in hand. My biggest concern about HOP is they want to get surveys. They want to use surveys, and I understand trying to understand the system. Ask employees where the next injury will occur, and you can learn a lot from what they say on a survey. Nothing wrong with that. But when you watch their behavior, you're seeing right there. We don't have to worry about recall or memory. We look right there. What are people doing? And we never blame people. It's about understanding the causes of behavior. But like I said earlier, sometimes the consultants took this and simplified it. One consultant, and I saw him do this, he would show the dumb things that people would do to get injured. And then he would make the statement, 95% or more of all the injuries are caused by workers' behavior. And that just got the unions very upset. The UAW, isn't it interesting? The UAW came down strong against behavior-based safety in the late 80s. But as I said earlier, it really started with Ford Motor Company and the UAW. So when presented correctly, we try to study behavior in order to understand the system and find out how to improve behavior, period. But again, it was misinterpreted because people didn't have the background in psychology. My first book was in safety, was 1996, and it was called The Psychology of Safety. And it said much more than measuring behavior. It talked about the human dynamics of safety, which includes behavior, of course, but it also includes our attitude. It includes our cognitions. A number of other aspects of people clearly influences injuries and fatalities in the workplace and elsewhere.
And I have to tell you, here's the interesting part. I was one of those big believers that when I started listening about HOP and about behavior-based safety on how they could not coincide together or they could not kind of see eye to eye or even interact with them. When I went to your website, safetyperformance.com, of course, your company, Safety Performance Solutions, I was impressed to see that there is a reference about HOP on there. And it is
absolutely.
And there's a line right next to behavior-based safety. And I was like, okay, maybe I'm reading this wrong. Maybe I went to the wrong website. But no, I was impressed just to see that there's a line in there that references it. And I'll tell you from being at the ASSP last week in San Antonio and just hearing the interaction between you and Todd Conklin, it seems like there's a lot of point of views that you guys are starting to see a little bit eye to eye on. So would you consider this the new point of view on safety as people like to reference to it?
Well, let's understand first, consultants love to come up with something new. They reinvent the wheel. I've seen it. Listen, I've been in this psychology field for over 50 years. I've been a professor at Virginia Tech. I'm going into my 50th year next semester. So I've seen it, and I've worked with consultants all that time. They love to come up with their own little label. You'll notice that consultants very rarely reference the research or the scholarship of others. It's like their idea. And, that's just the way it is. And consultants, by the way, don't have a continuous learning process. Whatever they left school with, that's their knowledge, and they go out and they consult with that. I'm proud to say that my partners at Safety Performance Solutions, they've been connected to this university ever since. In fact, 3 of them are my former students. And we have adjunct consultants with our company that were also students of mine. They got their PhD with me. But more importantly, we continue to communicate about the research in psychology, and they adjust their presentations and their workshops accordingly. So it's continuous improvement. It's continuous learning. And it does disappoint me that consultants, quite frankly, they don't read the work of others. They don't reference the work of others. They think they have this new idea. They go out, and I'm not picking on any particular consultant. I'm talking about in general terms. But I must say that, you mentioned Todd Conklin. I mean, he really means well, but he doesn't know the psychology of safety, so he doesn't really see the connections. Listen, we're all in this together, and that we can learn from each other. We need to work together and appreciate the knowledge that each has in this field of occupational safety and health.
Well, with you bringing that up, let me just ask you a strange question here. When you started to get involved with behavior-based safety and really going behind the Ford Motor Company, what did you believe that was your driving force behind safety? So who was your influence? What research did you do at that time?
Well, it was B.F. Skinner. I was an advocate of behavior. I mean, let's not talk about attitudes. Think safety. That was a common sign. Think safety, and people would believe you have to change people's attitude before you can change their behavior. This was common. This was commonly said, and people still say that. Some of the pop psychologists say if you want to change behavior, you have to change attitude first. Or you know what else they say? They say you can only change your own behavior. You can't change the behavior of others, which is so wrong. One of the popular fields in psychology is behavior therapy, and that's all about changing other people's behavior.
Good afternoon, Dr. Ludwig, and I appreciate you actually showing up here onto Safety FM. How are you today?
I'm doing well, Jay. Thanks for having me.
Talking about that, I know that behavior-based safety is a very strong suit. We're talking to Dr. Geller, and there has been a lot of conversation in regards lately of human organizational performance. What do you feel the difference is between the two, and can you consider one better than the other?
Yeah, it's a great question. You know, it's been disconcerting in the last couple of years as HOP, Human Organizational Performance, has gained relevance and practice.